Hello and welcome to another episode of Screen Facts Podcasts, a production of Jason Davis VoiceOver. Please visit jasondavisvoice.com/podcasts for information about how you can purchase merchandise if you'd like to support the show. Today we're going to talk about a movie that I had never seen prior to watching it for this podcast, and I'm joined by my good pal, Les Sinclair. Hey, Les.
Hello.
I had asked you to come up with a list of things you wanted to talk about on the podcast. You came up with a really cool list.
Up with about 1,000.
Yeah, which is good, which means we'll have plenty of episodes coming up with you, which I'm psyched about. And then I asked you the second question, what movie do you want to do first? And you suggested this. So the movie that we're going to talk about today is Night and Day. It was released in 2010. Somehow I completely missed this when it was in the theaters. Now, did you see this in the theaters or did you catch it afterwards?
I can't recall.
Okay.
But I can tell you why I wanted to talk about it. It's because it's been on Prime as a free video, and I wanted an excuse to rewatch it.
Okay. This movie has a pretty decent cast that I would have imagined it would have been a bigger movie. Like it would have been on the radar more. But so Tom Cruise is the main star, Cameron Diaz, Peter Sarsgaard, Viola Davis, Paul Dano, and Maggie Grace, who played the daughter in the Liam Neeson film Taken. So it's kind of cool to see her in something else, too. The movie was directed by James Mangold, who later went on to direct Logan, the Wolverine, and the last Indiana Jones film, among other things. Written by Patrick O'Neill. And interestingly, this thing has more than 10 different writers that were uncredited.
I think this is so interesting the way Hollywood works because there were so many people involved in this, and it's got to do with the Writers Guild and how that works on who gets credit. And the one writer, even though he was one of about a dozen, gets the credit for the entire movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that all works, but we're going to go ahead and name some of the other writers that are attached to this just so they get a little bit of credit. Scott Frank, Ted Griffin, Dana Fox, and Simon Kinberg are some of the other writers that I saw that were attached to this project. So this movie is an action comedy. It's what it's billed as, right?
Yeah, and I would call it a romance, too. Somewhere in there, there's this chemistry going on, too.
Yeah. A lot of the reviews I read from other people who've watched this, like on IMDb or whatever, they say, I don't really get the comedy tag on this. And I do. It's not funny in terms of the dialogue per se. I think some of the comedy aspect of it is more having to do with that the film, I think, is very self-aware. I think that the movie is almost a little bit of a satire of this type of movie, you know, the spy thriller action, blow everything up, and there's a million people firing guns at him and he never gets hit, that kind of thing.
I agree with that. I think it's a wink and a nod to the audience that gets it, that, hey, we're not taking this too seriously. It's not an action movie. It's an action comedy movie.
Yeah. Before we get into this, we should say a couple of things. Number one, we probably are going to give away some spoilers for the movie. So if you've never seen the movie, definitely watch it.
2010.
Right. Well, I had never seen it. And the other thing is, if you're going to watch this movie, you have to go into this movie 1,000% suspending disbelief. There's nothing in this movie that's realistic. Nothing.
I agree. The whole premise is messed up, and it's great.
Let's talk about the title of the movie first off. Night and Day.
They had a challenge with the title of the movie from the beginning. I mean, it was originally called All New Enemies, and then it was called Wichita, and then it was called Trouble Man, and then they finally landed on Night and Day, which is a clever play on Roy's real birth name, and Cameron Diaz's character, which her name is June and her sister's name is April. So there's some reference to like a June day and an April day, that sort of thing. So I think that the knight in shining armor aspect also comes into play with a little talisman that he's carrying around with him,
where he stores this super battery that he's trying to protect from getting into enemy hands.
Right.
I actually think Wichita would have been a better name for the movie because the plane crashes in Wichita, right? In the beginning?
Yeah, supposedly. You know, that's actually, where was that filmed? In Massachusetts, right?
Right, that's right. Again, we're suspending disbelief, right? So the movie, it had a pretty good budget. Well, maybe for this type of movie, $117 million, which is, I guess, pretty on par for a movie with a lot of explosions and stuff. It didn't make a lot of money in the US, but it did okay worldwide. It ended up grossing close to $260 million worldwide. Only like 76 million of that was in the US, which for a Tom Cruise film is a pretty poor showing, which is interesting.
Well, yeah, I think that's right, especially considering it's Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, who are both pretty good darlings of the movie world at the time.
For sure.
And it really didn't catch on fire, so to speak, in America, but boy, it lit up across the world.
And honestly, I think it should have, because it was a fun movie. I mean, unless people were just burnt out seeing Tom Cruise as a spy because of all the Mission Impossible movies, who knows? But it was a fun movie, over the top with explosions and ridiculousness in terms of him getting shot at and not getting hit and him beating up everybody. I thought his character was very interesting in that when there's like explosions and gunfire going off and he's just so calm.
Yeah, I think that's the campiness of it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Tom Cruise does pretty well is not take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I say that because he's been in Tropic Thunder. He's been in several movies that are these sort of comedy movies where he is almost making fun of himself.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of things on YouTube behind the scenes, and they were like showing the stunts and how Cameron Diaz was practicing her stunts, and she ended up kicking the crap out of him, which I thought was really, because he's not taking himself seriously, and it was pretty funny. And I think that was the premise of this movie. Like, there's this wink and this nod and this little inside secret that, like, hey, psst, don't take this real seriously.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun.
Oh, you can't take it seriously because it's just so over the top. It's funny because I'm watching the movie and there's one scene in particular that I go, oh, come on. There's one scene where they're getting away from like some of the bad guys and they're just driving down the road and they're having a conversation and he's trying to explain what he's trying to protect, who he's trying to protect, basically setting up the story. And I'm watching, I'm like, he's not even looking at the road. He's just looking at her the entire time. And I'm thinking, there's no way you can look at somebody like that and not get into an accident. And then lo and behold, the camera pulls out and they're on the back of one of those trucks that carries cars to a dealership. They're being towed. Right. So I thought that was actually pretty funny because like the whole time I'm thinking, come on, you're not even looking at the road, and they don't have to because they're being towed the whole time. So I thought that was interesting.
I was watching this scene of Tom Cruise on the motorcycle and like in the running of the bulls, Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz on the motorcycle. I thought it looks so CGI filled, not with the bulls actually, but just so much other stuff. And I read an article about James Mangold talking about how he wished that they hadn't used so much CGI because it took away from the reality, which was Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz did a lot of their own stunts, including a lot of the motorcycle stunts, but they CGI'd around them.
Interesting.
So it sort of made it seem like it was a CGI scene, but it was actually a real scene, and they just added the CGI afterward. I thought that was fascinating that Mangold was a little regretful that they had CGI'd it so much.
Tom Cruise is pretty well known for doing that. Cameron Diaz, I didn't realize Tom Cruise is like running on a rooftop at one point without wires or anything. So whatever you want to say about Tom Cruise as an actor, as a person, whatever. I mean, the guy's got balls of steel, no question, because he does a lot of stuff that's very, very dangerous in a lot of these movies. But I also read that a lot of the car crash sequences were actually filmed on studio lots rather than on location, and then they were digitally inserted into the final film. Maybe they have more control that way, and it's just easier than closing down a street or something. Yeah,
especially on the streets where they were, because they filmed in Spain and Austria and Massachusetts. And you can imagine how challenging it would be to close down an entire area so that they can do car scenes or chase scenes in an area like that. So it makes a lot of sense that they did that.
Interestingly, Tom Cruise wasn't the first person considered for this. Some of the names that I read, Chris Tucker, Adam Sandler, and Gerard Butler were all mentioned for this role. But I don't know. I just don't see Adam Sandler as a super spy.
Well, I don't think Adam Sandler saw himself as a super spy. He said something to the effect of, I don't see me working well with guns.
Yeah. So, okay.
I also read that it was Chris Tucker and Eva Mendes were the go-to lead roles on this, but they failed the chemistry test. I can't see Chris Tucker in this.
He did those Rush Hour movies with Jackie Chan, so he's done action comedy stuff. But again, this movie does a good job of keeping you guessing as an audience member as to who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. I'll give it that. I mean, it's sort of predictable, but at the same time, there's, a couple things that happen where you're not sure if Tom Cruise is the good guy or not. I like that aspect of the movie too.
Well, I think that's a good observation. I want to add on that and say, although it seems like you know exactly how the movie's going to end, right? They're going to ride off into the sunset and they're going to be together, because you can't really see Tom Cruise as the bad guy, especially in what was 2009, 2010, when this movie was filmed and came out. Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise wasn't playing the bad guy.
That's true.
One of my favorite scenes is the scene where he hands her the two machine guns in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And she ends up just squeezing the triggers, screaming and unloading them entirely. She misses him, by the way, every time. But it was just the craziness of that scene where she's just screaming and squeezing the triggers. And I could see how that could happen, too.
Yeah. I like the scene with his parents. They're just completely clueless to what he's involved in, and they get all the this money and like trips and all kinds of perks. They managed. They won the Publishers Clearinghouse. That I'm sure he made that happen. There's all this stuff that happens, and we're just lucky,
It's really great. Here's an interesting fact: the actress who plays his mom. Mm-hmm. Is about 10 years older than him. Only 10 years
in
older
real life,
than Tom Cruise. In real life, yeah.
Yeah, that's happened in other movies too, which I always find interesting. I think in Forrest Gump, Sally Field plays Tom Hanks's mom in that movie, and she's only a little bit older than him or something. So I
love when that happens.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
The granddad, I guess it is, on the television series Boston Blue, when Tom Selleck was on there, that guy and Tom Selleck are only 6 years apart. And so he's playing Tom Selleck's dad.
Very interesting.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I like those, though. It really just goes to show how a person's appearance can change so much the meaning of what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think one of the other interesting things to me was that Tom Cruise either had a lot of faith in this movie or just wanted to shoot it. Maybe it was just something that he thought would be fun, because he did this thing in financing. He took a significant pay cut. He was getting about $20 million or more per picture. And he shot this movie for only $1 million. And instead of taking the first dollar gross, I think is what they call it in Hollywood, which means he gets paid before everybody else gets paid, he took the second position and made sure that the producers got their money back before he got his money. And that's a pretty significant thing. So it makes you wonder why he was so invested in this movie and that it didn't do as well. I mean, that's got to be kind of a little bit disappointing for somebody like Tom Cruise to go, geez, and it only did $76 million in America. It didn't even make its money back.
I'm thinking that he probably thought it was going to be a very big success. So yeah, I'll take a lower upfront fee and then hopefully make, millions and millions and millions of dollars on the back end. And that happens a lot in the movie industry, where you're sort of betting on yourself and the movie being a huge success. And then, unfortunately in this case, it didn't work out that way. But unfortunately, Cry Me a River, the guy makes $20 million a picture otherwise, right?
Well, and they tried really hard to make it a success too.
Yeah.
The day before the film was released, the long scene was put on iTunes in a desperate attempt to improve the lackluster 21 to 31% definite interest level on IMDb. So, I mean, there just weren't a whole lot of people that were interested in going to this movie, and they were really trying to juice it as much as they could. And it looks like it didn't do a whole lot. Here might be a reason that it didn't do so well at the box office.
Okay.
As it only made $3.8 million on opening day against another little movie that you might have seen called Toy Story 3. So they changed the date on this thing. They put it right against Toy Story 3. And I guess the choice then, if you're going to the movies, is are we going to see the romance comedy action movie with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, or are we going to see the animated flick with our kids? And we know what the answer is. We're going to go see the animated flick with the kids. Plus, the Toy Story franchise is a pretty good bet. And so having to open against that is not the best move in the whole world, but I found it entertaining.
I agree.
I'm one of those people. I like a Tom Cruise movie. I can't tell you maybe but one or two movies that were real stinkers that Tom Cruise has done that I haven't found somewhat entertaining, at least entertaining enough to pay for the ticket price. And now I don't even do that anymore. But I typically enjoy a Tom Cruise movie, and I enjoyed this one. And I think he and Cameron Diaz is like the girl next door. And I think that their chemistry together, that it just seemed like a fun flick. It paid that off for me.
I agree. I think another reason that maybe he was so invested in this movie, maybe he just was excited to work with Cameron Diaz again because he did Vanilla Sky with her in 2001. Maybe that's part of it.
Hey, now that you mention that, maybe their chemistry is not what people want to see because that movie was not a huge box office success either.
Well, there you have it. There's a lot of things that could have factored into why this movie didn't do great. Maybe people were just burnt out on Tom Cruise as a spy. Maybe people were burned out on just with all the Marvel movies and they just had enough of things blowing up all the time. This movie is a fun popcorn movie where just great action sequences, great car chases. The story is maybe a little flimsy or a little familiar. And I'm not shitting on the movie because I really did enjoy this movie and I would watch it again. It's fun escapism. I would recommend this movie if you're somebody that likes mindless action and entertainment like that, and you're not looking for a ton of substance in the flick. I'm going to admit something right now. Yeah, I smoked a little weed before I watched this movie.
Whatever works, right?
And honestly, when I have a little bit of a buzz, like this is a perfect movie for that. When you're not looking for a lot of plot points that you have to pay a ton of attention to, you just want to watch a fun escapism sort of movie. It's great for that.
I think there are movies sometimes where you really just have to suspend reality and enjoy the flick for what it's supposed to be. And I don't think they were trying to, this movie was not a serious movie. I love what you said about there weren't a lot of plot twists. Like you kind of knew what was going to happen.
Pretty much, yeah.
And even along the way where, they're going to end up good together. And then at the very end, when the parents get tickets to go see them at the end of the earth or wherever they are.
Yeah, like in Africa or whatever.
Yeah, and you just go, well, that's exactly the way this movie should have ended. And they did everything right. They punched all the buttons and filled all the holes, and it was just a fun, entertaining flick.
Yeah, it was satisfying. And I even made a note of that the ending with the parents was good too. I enjoyed that. One of the things that I thought of too when I was watching this, it reminded me a little bit, not story-wise, but just the general feel of it, of the Schwarzenegger movie True Lies.
Yes.
James Cameron directed that with Jamie Lee Curtis, which was fun. But, these kind of movies you're really not watching for a realistic point of view.
Suspend reality and enjoy it for the sake of the entertainment that it's supposed to be.
100%. Whatever the reason that I missed this movie, I'm glad you suggested it because I thought it was a lot of fun. It's very entertaining if you just turn off your brain to anything realistic and you just enjoy great action sequences and a little kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of nod to this genre. It's something that you can enjoy if you're just looking for like a fun, no-thought kind of movie. But if you're looking for something with substance, I would skip this.
That's the best advice ever. But it really isn't. If you're like in the mood for maybe like a little bit of a rom-com and maybe like an action flick and you can't make that choice, this might be your movie for you.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Well, Les, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about Night and Day with me, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Let's do it again soon.
Definitely. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Screen Facts Podcast. If you want to find out more information about the podcast or how you can support the podcast by buying merchandise, please visit jasondavisvoice.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.